Sister Camilla Kimball, her maiden name was Irene, as in that Irene family, the really smart Irene family, okay? And so when Camilla Kimball talked about being a critical thinker and wanting to have answers to questions, she came by it honestly. It's in her DNA. This is not somebody that just sticks her head in the sand when there's a question she can't figure out. But she's the one that came up with this metaphor that gets used all across the church, especially within circles of people who are leaving, where she talked about this shelf. And when she has a question she can't answer, she puts it on the metaphorical shelf so she can just keep on living her life. Now, the people that hate that quote, that metaphor, are those that have left the church and said, to quote Sister Kimball, my shelf broke. Perhaps you've heard that from someone that's left the church. Well, my shelf broke. I kept putting doubts up there, kept putting up questions and couldn't answer them, and the whole thing just collapsed. And they hate, people who have left the church hate that quote, first of all, because they accuse Sister Kimball of being an ostrich that sticks her head in the sand. I'm like, an Irene? You got the wrong person there. She admitted, I'm a critical thinker. I just have to go on living. And if I can't answer something, I'm not going to pause and hold my present hostage until I find an answer. But she says, I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to keep learning. And eventually it'll come. Now, it dawned on me in an interesting place. I was the only Latter-day Saint in a congregation full of people that didn't like me. And we were having a Q&A, which was always exhilarating. And they were asking about, how could I say I'm the only true church and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, your church isn't false. It's only incomplete. And then the look on their face, I'm like, they didn't like that answer either. Okay, so what do I say now? Kind of like spin control. What do I? And then I heard myself say, yes, you're not false. You're just incomplete. Yikes. And so is my church. And then I'm like, what? No, we have the fullness of the gospel. So I'm up here like, what am I saying? And then it hit me, and I quoted to them the 9th article of faith. It starts with we believe. You know that one. It has 3 parts. We believe in all God has revealed. That's Revelation past. We believe all he now reveals. That's Revelation present. And we believe that he has yet to reveal many great and important things pertaining to the kingdom of God. That's Revelation future. And I said, that's where we're incomplete. Because if there's things God is saving that he hasn't yet revealed even to us, then I guess we're incomplete even in our fullness. But we believe that it will come. And more than that, we have prophets and apostles through whom it will come, since that's how it's always come in the past. That's what we're trying to offer to the world. But it dawned on me, there's going to be things we can't yet answer because it hasn't yet been revealed. And that's when it dawned on me, Sister Kimball, you were a genius, but there's 3 shelves, not just one. And the shelf you were describing, where you put the questions you couldn't answer, that's just shelf 3, Revelation yet to come. And then it hit me, our attitude toward shelf 3 is based on what's on shelf 2 and shelf 1. That's what makes all the difference. Think back to what Jesus said. Ponder upon the things that I have said. That's review shelf 1. Pray and ask about what I've said to you. That's shelf 2. Right now, present revelation. And then prepare your minds for the morrow because I come back to you. That's revelation yet to come. That's 3. In 3rd Nephi, chapter 2, it's fascinating because talk about spin control. There's been such an obvious sign that Christ has come, a day and night and a day with no darkness. You can't fake that. And what ends up happening in the next chapter? It says, in fact, this is worth reading. In 3rd Nephi 2, keep your eye out for the 3 shelves. It came to pass that thus passed away the 95th year also. And the people began to forget those signs and wonders which they had heard. What just happened to shelf 1, Revelation past? They are forgetting. It's growing dusty. I don't recall. Has God done anything lately? I don't know. They began to be less and less astonished at a sign or a wonder from heaven. What just happened? Shelf 2. God is trying to reveal things to them right then, Revelation present, and they're unfazed by it. I don't know. Must be a wrong number. And then he says in verse 3, came to pass that the people began to wax strong in wickedness and abominations, and they did not believe that there should be any more signs or wonders given. Now what's their attitude towards shelf 3? He's never going to answer those questions. That's why the shelves collapse. When shelf 1 is so dusty and shelf 2 is totally bare, to the point that you no longer see shelf 3 as revelations yet to come. It's just questions that'll never get answered, since he's certainly not answering anything now, and I can't even remember him ever answering anything in the past. Oh, it's amazing how forgetful we become. Whereas I've challenged my students to do this on occasion. Inventory shelf 1. Like, seriously, make a list. I've met a sweet lady that had heard me talk about this once and said, guess what I got my friends for Christmas? I bought them a shelf. A literal shelf. And I said, this is shelf 1. Go hang it up and start decorating. What would you put on yours? I'd have a copy of my patriarchal blessing. That has helped settle me throughout life. I would put a copy of the scriptures that I've been studying for the last 30 years, well marked. Evidence of things God has taught me line upon line. I would put a vial of consecrated oil to remind me of the miracles I've received and the miracles I've participated in. I'd have our temple wedding picture, a day that I knew that God knew who I was. There is nothing like dusting off shelf 1 and living in that, settling it in your heart, all these things that God has done to confirm his reality in your life. And yet, as much as I love shelf 1, shelf 2 is my favorite. What am I learning right now as I study, as I ponder, as I live the gospel, and that reality pokes through? And if I can just live in shelf 2, then by tomorrow, I move it down to shelf 1 and I dust off some other things and I remember, like, oh, that's so exciting. And now that my shelf 2 is bare, the Lord's like, okay, good. Ready for the next? Because I'm ready to reveal line upon line. And he moves it down from 3, and the next day I move it down from 2 to 1, and he gets another one from 3 to 2, and I'm rearranging shelves every day. And that's how I help stay settled. So much of it is simply remembering God. If you've ever gone rock climbing, or seen somebody rock climb where the rope is not hanging down to them, but rather hanging down from them, then you know that they're free climbing. They are reaching for shelf 3, places, heights they've never been before. It's exhilarating and dangerous all at the same time. The question is, does the rope hang straight down to the ground? Because one slip, one false move, and you crash all the way down to ground zero. Whereas if the rope is hanging sideways, where you clipped into an anchor bolt, fixed in the stone, and now I'm trying to get beyond it to reach another place I can lay another anchor. But if I'm only 3 feet above and I slip, I only fall 6 feet. What are your anchor bolts? What experiences have you had where you just know? So that no matter what comes and whatever shaking happens and slipping as you're waiting and reaching for shelf number 3, what will hold you? I'm grateful for the things that I know will hold me.